welcome to Cuckoo's Corner.
Hello everyone. Jaylee has picked out a book called Lyle the Crocodile by Bernard Wabde. It's a little different. What do you think it's going to be about?
I think it's going to be about
a crocodile. And look, we're wearing green, so we match Lyle. All right, let's see what happens to Lyle the Crocodile. This is the house on East 88th Street. Mr. and Mrs. Prem and their son, Joshua, live in the house on East 88th Street. So does Lyle. Listen, swish, splash, splash, sploosh. That's Lyle. There's the house. It's a big house. You think they have room for a crocodile?
I think they don't.
You think they don't? Lyle the Crocodile. There he is. In their bathtub.
I think he's like silliest crocodile ever.
The silliest crocodile ever. Well, let's see what Lyle is like. Lyle was very happy living with the Prem family. He was especially happy when he was being useful, like helping Joshua brush up on his schoolwork. Look at that. He's helping Joshua do flashcards and learn things. He's a smart crocodile, huh? But if Lyle was happy, he was making someone else unhappy. Perfectly miserable, in fact. That someone else was Loretta, Mr. Grump's cat. Mr. Grumps lived just 2 houses away from the Prems. Whenever this cat caught even the slightest glimpse of Lyle, she would fling herself into a nervous fit. That must be Mr. Grump's house. Lyle wanted desperately to win Loretta over. He tried flashing his sweetest, most toothsome smile at her to show her how really friendly he was. But this only frightened the distressful animal even more. Look, she looks a little upset. Poor Loretta. Would you be afraid?
I just sitting there like a normal cat.
Just be a normal cat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just go like...
He could skip double dutch 100 times without missing. It came to no particular surprise that Lyle could jump high, but Loretta, who was just let out for an airing, was surprised. She was terribly surprised. There he is, jumping rope with the children. And there he is, scaring Loretta. Oh no. Poor Loretta.
She's so sad.
She's so sad. Loretta was so surprised and so shaken, she fled to the nearest tree, and no amount of coaxing would bring her down, not until Mr. Grumps arrived to rescue and comfort her. Would she consider coming down? There she is, stuck up in a tree until her owner, Mr. Grumps, got there. Something will have to be done about that crocodile, stormed Mr. Grumps. Now, Mr. Grumps was really furious. Now he knew he would be snappy, irritable, and impossible to live with when he returned to his job in the big department store that following day. There he is, yelling at Lyle and Mrs. Prem. For the next several days, Mrs. Prem thought it best to keep Lyle close at her side. Together they fussed about the kitchen, preparing good things for that family to eat. When the weather permitted, they took lunch to the park. Lyle was always one for sharing. There he is with Mrs. Prem, making food. And there he is, feeding the birds.
Hey, Mama.
It's okay. It's all right. They even took trips downtown. There was much to see in the big city and much to do. Mrs. Prem could spend hours just browsing around antique shops. There they are, just browsing around together shopping. Lyle could spend hours watching building construction. They both loved to ice skate. How silly is that? He's ice skating with Mrs. Prem. Have you ever seen an ice skating crocodile? Me either. One day, Mrs. Prem and Lyle went shopping in a big department store. Unfortunately for everyone, it turned out to be the very same store in which Mr. Grumps held an important position. And unfortunately, they were to hear from Mr. Grumps all too soon, for it was his voice that suddenly broke in over the loudspeaker to announce a sale in the pajama department. There they are shopping and going on the escalator. What do you think is going to happen? Immediately, it was as if everyone in the store was in desperate need of pajamas. Separated from Mrs. Prem, Lyle was swept along with the crowd. As they neared the pajama department, Lyle thought he heard a familiar voice. "Lyle, Lyle," the voice called out. Lyle recognized the voice, all right. And the face as well. The voice and the face belonged to Hector P. Valentini, star of stage and screen, but he was Signor Valentini up to now. Oh, but what was Signor Valentini up to now? Well, for the moment, it seemed, he was very busy selling pajamas.
Oh, who is that? The crocodile was bought some pajamas.
You think he's going to buy some pajamas from Signor Valentini?
Yeah.
Lyle remembered unhappily his days of traveling and performing with Signor Valentini. But in spite of everything, the two were delighted to see each other once more. There he is, reuniting.
I put my hand in Lyle's face on the back of the book.
In another part of the store, Mrs. Prem searched frantically for Lyle. "Excuse me," she said to the lady at the information booth. "Have you seen a crocodile going past? He was wearing a red scarf." "No," answered the lady. "I have no information about a crocodile wearing a red scarf." "Excuse me," said Mrs. Prem to the sporting goods salesman. "Have you by chance come across a crocodile? His name is Lyle." "Sorry, madam," answered the salesman. "I have not come across any crocodiles named Lyle today." Mrs. Prem grew more and more upset. "Excuse me," she said to a man wearing a white carnation. "I have lost my crocodile and I don't know what to do." Whatever the man answered, Mrs. Prem never heard it, for his voice was lost in a chorus of other voices shouting, "More, more!" Those voices belonged to the huge crowd of shoppers surrounding Hector P. Valentini and Lyle. Because they had an audience and because Signor Valentini could not resist showing off, he had persuaded Lyle to join him in a free performance of their old stage act. "More, more!" the surprised but delighted shoppers called out, forgetting all about wanting or even needing pajamas. Oh, there they are dancing together. Look at that. Mrs. Prem caught up with them just in time to hear still another voice, charged with fury, shout, "What is going on here?" This was Mr. Grumps, and when Mr. Grumps saw what was really going on, his face turned red, blue, and purple with rage. "Madam," he gasped, "we do not permit crocodiles in the store, you know. Remove him at once. And you, sir," he said, pointing a dagger-like finger at Signor Valentini, "you, sir, are dismissed." "Something will have to be done about that crocodile." Those warning words of Mr. Grumps still rang in their ears as they said goodbye to Signor Valentini outside the store. Mr. Grumps at last made good his threat to do something about that crocodile. The next day he appeared at the Prem's door with papers authorizing Lyle to be committed to the city zoo. "The zoo!" exclaimed Mrs. Prem. "Whatever would Lyle be doing in the zoo?" "He'll be doing whatever a normal crocodile is supposed to be doing," snapped Mr. Grumps, who wasn't being at all nice about it. The Prems examined the papers. They appeared to be in order. There was little they could do, at least for the moment, to prevent Mr. Grumps from putting Lyle in the zoo. Lyle's first night was difficult indeed. There's that terrible, mean Mr. Grumps. taking Lyle away from the Prems. And there's Lyle locked up in the zoo. He looks sad, doesn't he? Yeah. Let's see what happens for Lyle. Do you think he still lives at the zoo? Not wanting to seem unsociable, he decided to join the other crocodiles who were cozily piled together. Just when he thought he had gotten himself comfortable on top, he awakened to find himself crushed to the very bottom. There he is at the top of the crocodile pile, and there he is at the bottom. Oh my goodness, it's a lot of crocodiles. Lyle's restlessness so annoyed the other crocodiles, they all just got up and stomped off in a huff. Lyle was happier during the day when visitors came. He amused everyone with his unusual tricks, and before long was the biggest attraction at the zoo. There he is.
My fingernail.
Joshua and Mrs. Prem visited regularly, arms laden with his games, toys, and the Turkish caviar Lyle so loved. Mrs. Prem did her best to smile and appeared cheerful, but just couldn't hide her concern. "Are you feeling all right, dear?" she would ask. "Are you getting enough rest? Are you making friends with the other crocodiles? Do the lions keep you awake at night? Is the floor too damp? Do the flies pester you?" Lyle shook his head yes, or no, depending on the question. He tried putting on a brave front, but Mrs. Prem knew very well he was unhappy and fought back her tears. There she is. That's so sad. She just wants Lyle to come home. One night, a new keeper appeared at Lyle's cage. Surprise, surprise. The new keeper turned out to be none other than Hector P. Valentini, star of stage and screen. "Shh," whispered Signor Valentini. "I have come to rescue you." Signor Valentini unlocked the door of the cage, and an astonished Lyle was set free. Look at that. Signor Valentini came for him. "You can't go home again," said Signor Valentini when they had put the zoo behind them. Signor Valentini was bursting with ideas. "We'll put our old act together again," he said. "We'll fly to Australia. They'll love us in Australia." Lyle groaned. The very thought of never seeing the house on East 88th Street again was grim indeed, and too much for him to endure. Look at that. There's the house he's going to miss. Signor Valentini read his thoughts and decided Lyle should have one last look at the house on 88th Street. Approaching the now sleeping street, they were suddenly met with a wall of dense smoke. The smoke, they realized with horror, was coming from Mr. Grump's house. While Signor Valentini ran to signal the alarm, Lyle broke into the house and rescued the still sleeping occupants. Do you think he's going to save them? Let's find out. A gasping, frightened Mr. Grumps and his cat were led to the safety of the street. Look at that. He got him out of the fire. Now the Prens and the entire neighborhood were awake and witness to Lyle's heroism. Mr. Grumps couldn't thank him enough. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Mr. Grumps to the crowd of onlookers, "Lyle is the bravest, kindest, most wonderful crocodile in the whole wide world. I would consider it a privilege and a pleasure to have him as our neighbor once more." "Hooray!" shouted the Prems. "Hooray!" shouted the crowd. Oh, I didn't share the picture with you. There it is. Everybody's happy. And he saved them. Lyle moved back to the house on East 88th Street that very night. Look, he's home. Several days later, a farewell party was given by the Prems for Signor Valentini, who was leaving to seek fortune and adventure in Australia. "Remember," said Mr. Grumps, speaking to Signor Valentini, "should you change your mind about leaving, a job in my store will always be yours, just for the asking. We need more people with your kind of talent and ability." Everyone smiled. Even Loretta. There they are, everybody gathered at the table. And pages are sticky. There's Lyle and Loretta. They like each other. All right, that's the end. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.